interested in geothermal. You're not interested in geothermal.
Oh.
So there's a county council meeting on Tuesday.
I missed that one. I wish I had showed up.
You may hear all about it
Oh, I'm.
from them.
Oh, these. Okay, good.
Doc? Sorry, did you have the printouts, like, of the minutes and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Oh, it's in a pile.
Yeah, I
Okay.
apologize.
Could you pass me down?
Is there one for all?
There's
Yeah.
one for...
One for all or all for one? Huh?
You're good?
Dot, did you want us to sign in here?
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Oh.
I know who you guys are. It's okay, press on.
Still get Alex's name on it.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's all right.
Okay. Everybody else, commissioners, you all have one. Correct.
Yeah. So we're only waiting for Kurt, but you know, I'm going to get started in just a minute. I'll give him one more minute. We'll start at 5 after.
Was Jim there as well? Private one there? Yeah. Good guy.
Here's one for you, Ron.
Oh, okay. Was Russ there?
Yeah.
All the private water companies were there. Landowner.
You want it?
But we were planning a conference group.
Are you Carrie?
I am.
Yeah.
It affects all the downloads. The area focus is
Thank you.
the water, part of the town affected by the level final water. You can contaminate.
I have only 4 agendas, and I'm going to leave them here if any of the public would like one.
discussion.
You can take a look at that.
Pushing the big thing. How do we do? We have to kind of find, best. You know, the national park. Oh, that's Kohala. Yeah, right next to.
Let's call the meeting to order. And Kurt will show up when he shows up. Assuming he does.
Oh, that's nice.
So,
That's interesting.
it's, I guess, 10:05 or 10:06, and this is the meeting of the Energy Advisory Commission for the County of Hawaii. And I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to our meeting today. We really appreciate having the public in attendance and encourage you to continue to attend as your interests spark your involvement. And so thank you for being here and for taking the time. We have an agenda. I'm going to go over that real briefly here. But before I do, let's do a quick roll call of who's here on the commission. And then if you don't mind introducing yourselves as well, that would be nice. I would like to know who you are. I'm Steve Burns.
Linda Anthony.
Rod Hinman.
Mike Kalikini.
Carrie Marks.
Nelson Ho representing Brittany Smart.
Guy Koyama.
Tommy Boy.
Curtis Beck.
Julie Myrie. Excuse me.
Dot Kaili.
Randy Kurohara.
Judith Glass.
E.K. Payne.
Wendy Silver.
Dan Marks.
Charles Smith. Jeffrey Last. Alan McMahon. Christopher Cook. Dave Parsons.
Great, thank you all. We have a packed agenda as we normally do, and one of the main items today on the agenda is for us to approve, if possible, the recommendations that we're sending to the mayor for this budget cycle consideration. And we put together, based on the various committees of this commission, some immediate priority recommendations, not to be construed as a comprehensive list of recommendations, but something for him to consider as immediate priorities to move forward with. And so we want to get through that agenda item to the extent we can come to agreement and be ready to forward those on. That's the goal of our key issue for this meeting. We also want to get some updates from Randy on a number of things, some relating to the mayor's budget, some relating to his trip to the Philippines. We're going to have an update about the work being done through the Kohala Center regarding the sustainability plan and whatever progress they can talk about for that. We're also going to discuss how we might develop a strategic approach regarding how monies get budgeted in various areas in the county, such that energy initiatives that show a good return on investment can be appropriately acknowledged for that and be looked at as key types of investments given the annual returns that can come from those types of initiatives. And we're going to discuss a little bit about the sustainability plan to the extent we have information available about that, and move on with some considerations and planning regarding the Energy Forum subject area that we have put forward as a commission and want to continue to evolve. So that's essentially what's on our agenda for today. I'd like to open this up to any statements from the public. This is a normal part of our agenda, and statements are limited to 3 minutes. Does anybody want to provide a statement for the record? Okay, hearing no answer to my question, I assume that means no. And that's the way it'll be reflected in the minutes today. Next item is the approval of the minutes from our meeting on February 24th. Do I hear any motions?
To adopt them.
Second.
Okay, any discussion regarding content contained within the minutes and whether or not any of the information is in need of correction, revision, edits, or anything like that? Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes?
I did have a question on Will's report. The LED lights that he received, and Randy, maybe you can, it's a simple question. He said that he had already was expecting 100 lights to be received in March. Is that for street lighting, or is that for the West Hawaii Civic Center?
Why are you standing with streetlights? Yeah.
I believe their program is to work on replacing the street lights at the intersections to LEDs, and that's sort of a first phase effort in terms of how
You mean the stop lights, the traffic control lights, not street lights?
No, the street lights.
The street lights. Okay.
Yeah, they're LED street lights. So.
Because a lot of the stop lights are in fact already.
Yeah.
LED.
Right.
All right, I just wasn't sure where they were going.
Excuse me?
I think this is our statement.
Oh, do you want to introduce yourself? Sorry, we just passed that step, but I'll back it up for a second since you just
Apologize for
came in.
being late. I'm
It's
Robert
okay.
Petrucci.
Okay, hi, Robert. You know, we did, since you just came after this step, and I'll back up if you want to make a statement on the record. We are receiving statements from the public for this meeting, and they're limited to 3 minutes.
I have a really quick statement. That would be that I was disappointed that nobody from the community was brought along on the trip to the Philippines, but everybody that went was basically pro-geothermal. That's really all.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to updates. And for the first update,
All right, we need to go.
Yeah, you need to turn off.
Yeah.
oh, okay, sorry, yeah, let's back up. I'm sorry, I skipped over actually approving the minutes.
Yeah.
Do we have a vote to approve the minutes? You have a change?
Yes.
Okay, what was that?
Okay, so one in Will's report, he talked about the charging stations there from Better Place.
Not better brand.
Right.
Better brand, that's right. And on the first page,
What was that? What page was
that's
that,
page
please?
4.
Better,
Oh, it's the second bullet point?
oh, thank you.
Better
It's like a
place.
store.
Better
thing.
place.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, page 4. Better place. Okay.
And on the first page, I think I was referred to as chair in one point.
Okay, flashing back, I think, huh?
It's on the, it's actually on the form itself, up here.
Oh, yes, I did change
Oh.
the agenda though.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, so there's one.
And then-
I didn't
you
catch
were-
that one.
You were the chair when we started, right?
No, you
Not at this
no,
meeting.
January.
Oh, then Dot under
Oh,
call to
yes,
order.
I see that call to order, Rod.
Yeah, I called it.
I
I
apologize.
think Steve called it.
Yeah, he did. Okay, that's the kind of corrections easy corrections, thank you.
Are there any other revisions, edits anyone wants to make?
Just a comment.
Okay.
On page 13, the last page, I wanted to let the members of the public know that we did receive copies of the geothermal working group report at the meeting. We each got a hard copy, and noted that there should be a focus on exploring the barriers and available opportunities regarding geothermal, and an educational piece for those who do not have the information that was in the report. Thank you.
One more thing, Tracy.
Yes?
Under Will's report, there's a question and answer, and one question was what the other counties do for energy, and I did some research with Kauai, and I didn't know if there would be an opportunity to share that at some point.
Yeah, I'll allow for that as we perhaps get into some of these updates.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate that work you've done. Can we reflect in the minutes that Hank has joined us?
Yes. Welcome back.
Okay. Okay, we have on the table a motion to approve the minutes as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes approved as amended. Okay, moving on to the update section. I'd like to welcome and thank Randy Kurohara for coming to the meeting and for working with us to help guide us in providing our recommendations to the mayor and giving us appropriate feedback in terms of some of the initiatives that perhaps are already being pursued. And obviously that's one of the areas we'd be very interested in hearing about from you is the budget recommendations regarding energy initiatives that are already being entertained in the agenda or in the mayor's budget. And we'd also like to hear what your impressions were based on your trip to the Philippines and some of the lessons learned that you bring back that you can share with this commission and the members of the public who are here. And I know Mike also was on that trip, and we may also ask if you have some complimentary observations that you might want to share as well. And let's start with that, and there may be some questions as we go through that.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy, for
No
coming.
problem. Okay, so in starting off, maybe let me cover a little bit about where we are with the budget for 2012-2015, which was submitted first week of March to the county council by the administration. Pertaining to the energy program, some of the questions that we were wondering about in the last meeting, got some clarity to that right now. One of the questions that had come up in the past, and I also see it in the recommendations here, is regarding funding for our energy coordinator, who right now currently is still operating off of state funds through DBED. That was, I think DBED got these funds from the federal government in some way. So they were funneled to DBED to each county to fund an energy coordinator position or similar function. And historically, just to make it clear, the past 2 years we've put money within the department in case going into the year, we weren't sure if this funds would continue. So we had a contingency plan always in place in case the funding from the state would stop, then we would continue to fund it through the county government funds. This year is no different. We have it in there again. So again, funds are in the budget to fund the position if the state funds don't come through. We were put on notice again by the state that it probably won't happen this year. So we have the funds in place. They said that to us last year. The year before, they were not sure. So again, we recognize the importance of making sure that that position is always funded, and we have the funds in place. Okay. Secondly, and in addition to that, there's a typical, like in R&D, we already have an RFP request that had been put out prior to the budget actually being realized for energy promotion, education, marketing, of that nature. It's for all of our programs within R&D. Right now in the budget, there's $50,000 that can be granted out to a nonprofit, and it's not 50 as a one lump sum. It could be 10,000 here, 20,000 there, 5,000 here, to any nonprofit that wants to take on or wants to submit a proposal. Again, this process has been going on already. The submissions are in. We haven't awarded yet. So what happens is a committee reviews, ranks, scores, and awards. The final awards won't go out until the final budget is actually approved by the county council, because again, we don't know if where we are today is where we're going to be on July 1st. So, but this is the first budget submittal on March, and there's a back and forth thing that goes on between the administration and the county council before everything's supposedly approved before the next fiscal year starts. There's also a $150,000 line item within the energy program funds that can be used for energy promotion, marketing, again, of this nature, that's not in the RFP process. So these funds, to me, when I look at that, that could be something that could be used towards one of the recommendations that this Energy Advisory Commission brings forth to the mayor. If it's not enough, again, we're only in the initial draft budget that goes to the county council. There's another one that it's worked on again. There's feedback that happens, changes can be made before the final one is submitted and approved. So anyway, so the energy coordinator in regards to the energy program is funded 50 in the RFP and 150 in another category that can be used towards marketing initiatives. So far, I think this past year, some of those funds are used to fund energy sustainability.
So is there also money for the sustainability coordinator position that was vacated?
That's a different program. Yeah, that's been worked on. Yeah. In fact, there was a notice to proceed on that one as well to fill that position. Okay, so sorry, that was in regards to the budget. And another thing that came up at the last meeting I wanted to just follow up on was there's a question that was brought to the commission regarding whatever happened to that $4 million CIP funds, the bonds. And then, we discussed the fact that, it's really, after we looked into it, we realized that these funds were designated because they're, with bonds for CIP projects, which we couldn't just necessarily get DPW to use towards things that we may necessarily think are important, but is what they could use towards buildings, maybe previous buildings or things of that nature. I checked with David Yamamoto because the impression was made that the funds are all used for like handicap accessibility and the funds are all spent. What he reported was they have encumbered only $27,686 of that $4 million. And that money was used for site engineering, upgrade electrical services to support solar PV system, and then 15,000 of that was used towards the design and engineering of the EV charging stations at the Alpuni Center. So for this building, which I know they're going to move forward on installing electric vehicle car charging stations here. So, so again, of that 4 million CIP dollars, only 27,000 plus was used, well, so far encumbered.
So the rest is still out
Still
there for
available,
use?
yeah.
Okay. And just to clarify, so those funds need to specifically be used for capital improvement projects because they're funded by a bond.
Yes.
They can't be used for, say, normal maintenance or.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, like buying electric vehicles or anything like that. We cannot.
And when
So-
and I apologize, my business model is a little different. When we talk about capital improvement projects, it doesn't have to be something that existing, that's being enhanced. It could be a new capital project as well.
I believe so. Yeah, and you know, maybe what we could do is realizing that there is so much of it still available. Maybe we could sit down with David Yamamoto, somebody from the Department of Public Works, to better explain. Yeah,
That
to come
would be
here.
great.
Could we agendize that?
Could he come?
Yeah,
and
you know,
idea.
so we
Yeah.
had asked him to come here, you know, but right now, just to bring this commission, they're under a lot of pressure right now because David, I know for sure, because he's handling both the Kauai project as well as the Hawilo slaughterhouse, which are all, you know, things that gotta be encumbered before we use those funds. So they're very much under pressure right now. But maybe in a couple of months or something, things may be better. But we can try for sure for next month, but we'll just see what he says. I know this meeting he just couldn't make it, so he submitted something in writing.
We have it on the agenda for today to discuss further as well.
Yes. Okay. So let me move on then, if I could, to the Philippine trip. So anyway, just to recap, again, the premise of the trip was driven from way back last year as we were looking at the APEC conference that was coming up, and part of the discussion between all the counties were to identify a sister city that we could bring to the table based on economic development within the Asia-Pacific region. County of Hawaii had entertained 2 sister cities. One was Kumejima, Japan, that had interest in OTEC, and then the other was identified as Ormoc City in the Philippines, which has the similarity with us as having geothermal resources. And I believe even Nelson, I heard a story that you actually found the city.
I did.
Is that okay?
I did the
Okay.
research
Yeah.
for Mr. Kurohara.
Right. Yeah, so it was brought to the mayor. They made a proposal on how this city has a lot in common in terms of population. Their, agriculture is a big industry there as well, and they have geothermal. So that's where the whole thing started. Ormoc City and Kumejima both came to our island around the same time during the month of September last year, attended the Asia Pacific Energy Symposium on Oahu with us and signed sister city agreements. So part of us going back was sort of this, we're trying to plan it earlier, but was sort of this reciprocal visit that's built into the sister city agreement. Part of what we wanted to do at this trip was to explore not just the geothermal, not just signing a sister city agreement, but looking at their agricultural practices as well. So Dr. Bruce Matthews from the University of Hawaii was part of the delegation as well. So we did spend a day specifically in agriculture working with the Design University and signing a memorandum of understanding to exchange student, faculty on how best practices there and here can be incorporated on both sides. What we did find out, interesting enough, is that they're very sustainable in a lot of their practices. The community, in some ways, looks a little bit behind us in terms of like the technology, modes of transportation, and so forth. But in some other areas, we have a lot to learn from them. When it came to geothermal, we did spend a day visiting the production facilities, in Leyte, run by a company called EV NEDC, Energy Development Corporation. We did visit NGCP, which is their national grid, and then we also had so we did visit their facility, and then we also was joined their presentation by their local utility, which is LEYCO, L-E-Y-E-C-O. So what we did learn, one is that, we just wanted to go there and see what is 700 megawatts of geothermal look like in terms of plants, pipes on the ground, things of that nature. Where is it situated in respect to the population base? What kind of technologies are they incorporating when they're drilling for the geothermal energy? What's their best practices in terms of environmental, social, cultural? Wanted to find out about the community's benefit programs that they have.
Yeah, that 700 megawatts, is that just for Ormoc City, or was that for the district?
It's actually, yeah, and I'll get to that. Yeah, it's actually more than what their needs are in Ormoc.
Yeah, I was going to say 700 megawatts, that's like 4 times this island. And you mentioned Ormoc City, is it similar like in population?
It is, yeah.
Big island? Okay, so this got to be a larger area.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, we wanted to learn what lessons have they gone through, because what we did find out was that the Philippines, way back when we had our energy crisis in the 70s, they went through some hard times, and they sort of made the decision back then, kind of look at, how can they be more sustainable in terms of their own natural resources. So they started back then to look at expansion of geothermal, which they had in the Leyte area. And they also looked at ways from a national standpoint to become more secure, which is where they had cables that were put in between islands to move energy around the entire country in a more efficient manner. So that was sort of historically what I got from speaking with them. What we did find though is because a lot of the transition, because I think a lot of us when we went there, what we wanted to find out was what was it, how did they get from, where we are today to where they are, sort of, from one level, how did that chain of, actions happen? And what we did find out was that the people who are in place today, it's like maybe third generation, or there's a company like EDC was bought out. This company was actually an American-based company at one point that sold to another company. So things have evolved since that time, and a lot of the people we spoke to weren't necessarily the people that were the players that are involved when a lot of the transition occurred. So I think, Mike, I don't know if you can add to that, but that's my understanding, that we really didn't quite understand how everything went from here to here to here. Well, let me backtrack. So what we did find, and what we do understand today, is that they do, their regional needs are probably only about 100 megawatts. I know the mayor said 180 at a meeting, but I'm not sure. I think it's little. It's like only about 100. I think they have the capacity to export about 600. Different from what we have here in Hawaii is the national grid is like this additional layer. So NGCP, or the National Grid Corporation, is responsible for pretty much the regional distribution of all that power, either through cables or major transition lines. So to me, I kind of look at them as like freeways. They kind of take the power across the country. Then there's a local utility, which could be like a helco or whatever, right? They kind of take it to the homes from there, so that's like your streets and your roads and your driveways that take it up to the homes. So there's, an additional layer to me of like a national utility, a local utility, and then your power producer, What we were impressed with, and Mike can add to this too, was they do have a very first-class as far as I perceive that first-class operation, very technology, very clean. They dig over and they have a very proactive, expansive, environmental and social program and outreach, and things that, when I look at it, is very proactive. When they want to set up a new site, the work that goes in advance, I was impressed with. And and for the record too, we are preparing a final report for the trip. It's actually, we're going to be working on it in Kohala tomorrow, so we should have it soon, which will go over everything. Well, just giving my personal overview of this trip. Interestingly, some of the headlines in the local papers had to do with rising energy costs. So that became a question to us as to, well, why in an area that has an abundance of geothermal are you concerned with your energy costs? And it had to do with the way the utility and the grid structure is set up. Because you have a national utility or grid, and you have a local utility. Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just my simple way of thinking about it, okay? It's like, let's just say if you have geothermal in one region on this island, right? Yet it's used to power utility around the whole island, right? But the rates in Puna, let's just say, if you want to say Puna, doesn't go down because it's part of a island-wide grid. Same with Leyte is a region that's wired into a national grid. So even while this region may produce more than what it needs personally, right? They're subject to a national pricing system. So that was one of the things that we realized is like, as much as they produce, there needs to be mechanisms to ensure that regionally or locally there needs to be some way to incentivize. Mike, do you have any comments on that? That's just my take on it.
Yeah, actually I want to back off. My first overall impression about the geothermal aspect at Leyte, the Philippines is a very poor country in general. The people and just their standard of living is far below what we're accustomed to in the U.S. and Hawaii. But what I noticed is in the fields, in the Leyte fields, is that all around the geothermal projects, the homes there were like above normal, above the standard of living that you usually see around elsewhere else in all of the Philippines. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That was pretty neat. But yeah, I think what Randy was trying to say about the differences in the cost of energy. And by the way, the local consumers there pay 8 pesos a kilowatt hour, which equates to 19 cents roughly. And they consider that very high. One of the guys that was a guide for us, he says he paid 1,000 pesos, and he said electricity is out the roof, and that comes up to like less than $25 a month. So it's very relative, So, and getting back to Randy, so you have the Leyte field, and they produce the energy. So they have roughly, just to give you guys an idea, for the 700 megawatts, they have like 111 production wells. They have like 41 injection wells, and this is scattered over an area of approximately 270 acres. Okay, so that's the relative size. And so EDC would be the entity that produces the energy, and they in turn would work with NGC, which is sort of like a transmission. They take care of the transmission, and so there's a payment there, and then there's another payment going to the local level. So the people there feel like that's why it's like expensive, and it goes past through different entities.
Mike,
Yeah,
what did you say the number was in terms of the production and reinjection wells?
111 production wells
And that's for 700 megawatts?
for 700 megawatts. They're very similar to our geothermal here. They average like 3 to 30 megawatts per well. And it's 41 injection wells. So we were fortunate to visit two facilities. You know, the Philippines is number 2 in the world as far as geothermal. Number 1 is the U.S., mostly because of the geysers and what's going on in Nevada and California. But they are number 2, and they're ramping up. There's 4 main areas. We got to visit the Leyte area. They have like installed capacity of about 1,500 megawatts. So we got to see about 50% of it. Well, two facilities. The first one was a 125 megawatt facility, and it was actually built by Ormat, which is a company that's involved with PGV today. It was the first one, the 125 megawatt project, and that one was a build, operate, and transfer arrangement between Ormat and the Philippine folks. So. And then we got to see the largest facility, which was really, really nice, and I was amazed at how clean it was. It was like 6 stories. It was 231 megawatts, one single facility. Now, most of this power is going away. It's going out to different parts of the Philippines, some even to Manila, the main city. But I thought it was pretty impressive. They have very similar, the resource and the technology is very similar. It was pretty impressive,
You
actually.
said similar depth, is it?
Similar depth, yeah, even the depths were similar. You know, one thing that I thought was interesting is that the geothermal resource that they are producing from is considered an extinct volcano. I thought that was pretty interesting because, talking about the potential for any heat on the islands north of us.
It's not an active volcano.
It's considered extinct.
Yeah, so when was the last time it erupted, or do they say? I'm just wondering what they
Yeah, no,
qualify as
I
extinct.
didn't ask, but if we had a
Like more than
geologist,
100
someone
years?
who could probably tell us what extinct usually means. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, not to do with extinct, but I just want to say that the Philippines and Brazil are perfect examples of countries which back in the 70s put their foot down over the few US dollars they had, if they had any, to buy oil. Today, the Brazilian economy is extremely strong and robust, and the Philippines, again, is in good shape. Because in the 70s, these guys made decisions to stop sending their US dollars out to buy oil. We didn't make that decision. And you can see the result of this. Brazil's economy is in extremely good shape. And they're becoming quite a world power as far as an economic driver. That they cut their dependence on any kind of imported oil. And so if you take that in a microcosm to this island could be very independent in a very good state. And we in the 70s let that go.
So
That's the activity of the volcano. The volcano being active is not the issue.
It is if it erupts. It is if it erupts.
Yeah.
comment?
No,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay, thank you. Appreciate your concerns. We do have to get through our agenda, so thank you for
Yeah, so I mean,
recognizing.
that's pretty much it. I mean, Mike, if you wanted to add anything else as far as...
Well, as far as maybe on the economic side, because of the geothermal, the universities and the programs that they have, it really stirred up big programs on the engineering side, the study of geotectonics, mechanical and civil electric engineering. That really was a big boost from the energy perspective.
Randy, you had said something about being impressed with the social give back, social consciousness, the way that it was approached there in terms of working with the community. Can you give us some examples of what you're referring to?
Yeah, right off the top of my head, we brought back a lot of their documents, programs that they did. present to us during a formal presentation that they give. I don't have the exact details just off the top of my head, Mike, I'm not sure if you do. But it's part of they have a program developed within I believe the rate structure or how things are paid, that it is built into that as well. But in addition to that, there's some of the measures, and procedures that they have in place in regards to, the environment, the forests and the places that they have their plants in, which is very impressive. So anyway, I'm sorry, I don't have the details on exactly what they specifically do, but I know that they do have programs that are specifically in place. Within the EDC Corporation, they have designated personnel that's pretty much all they do. They work with the community, some is, just for the environment. So anyway.
Are there any other notable, I know you talked about some of the similarities between there and here, and Mike especially reiterated some of that. What about some of the differences? Are there any differences that come to mind?
Not really. I think the main one was just the structure of the layers of the utilities. That struck me as very different from what we would have to do.
Other commissioners have questions for Randy or Mike?
With so many wells, is it earthquake prone in that area? Are you experiencing it? And I'm wondering if the tectonic plate where the Philippines is not moving. That's why they're still able to tap into a resource that, with a dormant volcano. Because our tectonic plate that we sit on is moving 4 inches a year. So that's why, the other islands don't have the geothermal resource that the lower rift zone has. But
I kind of remember a slide they're showing that they're under this plate that's kind of moving under,
They are in a subduction zone.
Yeah.
oh, they are.
Yeah. Okay. That's very much.
So part of the heat could be generated from the tectonic plates, the friction caused by the subduction. For example, in Nevada and California, a lot of their heat source is because of the tectonic plates pushing together, and not volcanic like ours.
Interesting. The other thing I was curious to know about is there a cluster industry that has developed around the geothermal? Because I know you can use the heat for many other.
Yeah, we can see that. I think we asked that question, yeah?
Yeah, one thing I've known of this about the Filipinos is that they're very they have great initiative, and it's like they build their own parts of all the vehicles there is from scrap material that they slam together, and
Like the jeepneys and
the jeepneys and everything. It's amazing. So although you don't, like we're used to here where you have big machine shops and whatever allied machineries, whatever the names are, it seems to me like there were a lot of small shops that were there to help service the needs of these big plants.
welding shops.
Welding, little machine shops. It's like they would make the parts needed, and plus they're in a remote area. It's not like you have easy access to parts on the shelf.
Go ahead, Julie.
Did you guys look at how the electricity is transferred all over the place from these power plants? Is it cable, undersea, all that?
It's a combination. The one thing that they did show us was the converter. Was that the converter we saw at the NGCP?
Yes.
That was pretty huge. Impressive. Was that AC to DC?
Yeah, that was AC to DC. It was amazing. I'm sure we have pictures.
Yeah.
But they have at least 4 undersea cables connecting several different islands, and they actually have a longer term plan to connect more islands. The Leyte field, they say, is pretty much developed to the level that they want to be. So the other fields that they're looking at connecting the grid or connecting islands.
Was it a solid state converting system, or was it a rotating?
Solid state.
So big SCRs,
Huge.
big air conditioned buildings.
Yeah.
And the land is owned by the state, or is it owned by EDC, where the geothermal production wells and?
I believe the land's owned by the Philippine government. I didn't catch that. We didn't. I don't remember discussing that. They pay royalties. Just in fact, the other thing is all renewable energy in the Philippines pay royalties.
Did you guys meet at all with any of the agencies like civil defense or anyone that mitigates disaster or issues like that in terms of their preparation and what kind of plans they have and how they are proactive in terms of addressing some of those issues?
The EDC folks, because they're a big company, they have an in-house response team. So they are, in effect, geared up and trained to respond to upset situations. But we weren't able to speak. There wasn't anyone at our presentation from outside of the company.
Okay. Did they mention anything about earthquakes? I know Guy was kind of inferring that maybe in a different area here, and obviously we have earthquakes. Do they have frequent earthquakes there?
No, that wasn't mentioned.
I have a question regarding backup sources of the energy for mitigation purposes and what fuel.
All they have is geothermal. To my knowledge, they don't have any backup because their island alone, their demand is 100 megawatts, and they're typically, exporting.
So the national grid would be the
backup.
The backup.
Yeah.
But also if they have separate fields, right, if they have to close in one field, then they've got potential to go off another because they're not in a single
And that's
source.
That's how they're set up.
So that they can use other fields to cover, just like we do with hydrocarbons here. One power station goes down, we bring another one on.
Sounds like they're regulating units or another island or something. Like you say, it's all tied into a nationwide. Yeah.
I know you have your hand raised, and we've actually declined to receive additional comments from other members of the public, and given the urgency of what we're attempting to get to on our agenda today, we're going to follow our standard rules and actually not engage with the public during our meeting. If you want to stay around and ask questions during the break, you're welcome to do that. But that's just the way we operate as a commission so that we can get through our agenda. Are there any other questions for Randy or Mike on their visit? I do want to come back to the staffing issue before we tie up this particular agenda item.
Will we see a report?
Yeah, we're preparing one, so we're going to work on it tomorrow. I don't know if we'll finish it, but we'll get as much of it done as we can.
And another point of information, Steve was the county's first energy coordinator, and he had a zero budget.
It's not something I brag about. I just wanted to give Linda an opportunity to share the research that she had done in learning about Kauai's experience in terms of their energy staffing and their savings targets in relation to the expenditures, electricity expenditures there. She had dug up some interesting information that is relevant to the discussion about the funding for our energy coordinator position. So would you feel comfortable presenting that? Thank you.
Absolutely, and I apologize. I think actually, Steve, you had asked during our last meeting, you had asked Will what other counties do. And just strangely enough, George Costa, who is the corollary for Randy, in Kauai, is a good friend of mine. We were both in the hospitality business together years ago. So it's very strangely that we ended up where we are right now. So I just gave him a call and asked him what they do in Kauai. And I thought it was great because his first answer was, well, you know, Hawaii County did this great green government business plan, and we adopted that. We thought it was great. So in all of their departments throughout the county, they have people who've been identified as their, let's say, their green team member who's responsible for that department to make sure that they're following all the, not to be cliche, but reduce, reuse, recycle. They took the step in their Department of Buildings to take an existing employee who had shown great aptitude and interest and had that person trained to become an energy manager. So they're not just a buildings coordinator, but their job now is to everything that the county does from an operational perspective versus, let's say, a visionary developmental perspective, but from the day-to-day operations, it's this person's job to make sure that everything that's being done is being done with an eye to, are we maximizing our energy efficiency, are we using sustainable methods, things like that. So we also talked about funding, and he said the exact thing that Randy started out with. So I asked him, you know, George, how do you guys fund your department? And he said, well, we heard from DBED that they're not going to have any money for us this year. So just the same experience he had had. So what they've done in Kauai is they've funded the department through their general fund. And I was trying to kind of get a relative feel for the how much energy each of the counties uses, in Kauai being quite a bit smaller. Their 2011 county energy bill was about $7 million. And from what I understand, the Big Island's energy bill was more like $40 million. So we're close to 6 times, not exactly, but in the ballpark of 6 times more energy use in this county. So just trying to get a relative feel, what they've done in Kauai is through the general fund, they funded the energy coordinator position, the sustainability coordinator position, and the department has a budget of about $400,000. So that's to cover their salaries, benefits, and program expenses. So just getting, relative to that, if you extrapolated that to the size of our island, it would not be unreasonable to say that our energy department could be in the realm of millions of dollars. And George's perspective was, if these guys can save 10% of the energy, so if they had a $7 million energy bill, and they can find ways to save 10% of that, they've saved $700,000. Their department budget was $400,000. The county still comes out ahead. So just when we were talking last meeting about return on investment, that's the way that they looked at it. So I'm just going to check my notes real quick, but I think that was it.
So I would comment and just say that I believe ours is, in terms of funding or cost, if you pay for the positions of the sustainability coordinator, that program, energy coordinator, that program, we're around there, 400, a bit more for ours. But again, we have a larger,
right, we have a bigger net to crack. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the independent research you did on that, and that's really valuable perspective for us to consider, especially since a number of our recommendations are associated with how we staff up the county appropriately to take on these ambitious goals that the mayor's put forth.
And one other comment to what Belinda did share was initially at the start, our mayor's green team and a lot of these things that were initiated a few years back really sparked an interest from other counties. So a lot of us started similar programs. So
I have to say, I'm a little competitive,
oh, yeah.
and I think we should beat Kauai. So I love it that they adopted our ideas.
I have a question for Linda. In any position within any organization, how much authority does or respect do these individuals have within the whole county?
For their energy coordinator
and sustainability person.
Well, just the sense I get from George is, and one of the things he shared with me, is that they've really worked to get buy-in through all of the departments. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but very important that these people who've been identified as the green team members in each of the county departments, part of their responsibility is to educate their subordinates of the importance of all of this and to really develop buy-in so that it's not just lip service. So hopefully that would translate into respect to the people who are leading those positions.
I think you could talk about the respect that Alex had I think he got a huge amount of respect from everybody.
Yeah, he worked well with the community, and even within the county, he did have a lot of respect. I mean, he did move on, so we were filling the position. But at the same time, I mean, there is some challenges involved with the multiple departments, the layers in every department, in trying to recommend changes in procedures, changes in how they operate, or how they procure, or what they procure. So these are things that will be a continual work in progress, but we are working towards that.
Great. Thank you very much for the report and sharing your insights. We appreciate that, and we may have further questions as we go forward, especially if you can make available the official report that you guys are putting together on your trip and circulate that to our commissioners. It'd be very helpful. Thank you. Let's just cover one more item, and then we're going to take a break so that, because I don't think we're really scheduled to talk about geothermal anymore in this particular meeting. And that way, it'll give you guys a chance or a few moments to follow up with a couple of questions informally, if you wanted to do that, or stay around for the rest of the meeting or not. It's your choice. But the next item on the agenda is an update regarding the work being done by Christopher Cook and David Parsons from the Kohala Center on the Kauai County Energy Sustainability Plan, and regarding any particular progress updates that you might want to provide us.
Yep, thank you. We prepared a couple notes for the commissioners to help. I think we have some extra copies that we can pass around that will be helpful as well. We can we can circulate this electronically too if you'd like. It's pretty short. And we have the agenda's packed today, so we won't try to take up too much of your time, and just give you a quick update on the project status and some of the way we're hoping to structure the plan to make it a useful tool for the county. So, my name's Dave Parsons. This is Chris Cook. We're with the Kohala Center, and as the commissioners are aware, we're updating the Hawaii Island Energy Sustainability Plan. Today, we just want to provide you with an update on kind of the project status, and give you an overview of how we intend to structure the plan, and let you know about kind of the next steps, the most immediate next steps going forward. So as you see on the second slide there, right now we're in the process of conducting the analysis and drafting the major recommendations that will go into the plan. And at the end of this month, we're going to release the major recommendations that we've come up with to you all and to key stakeholders that we've identified as part of the stakeholder and community engagement part of the work that we're doing. What we want to do is vet the recommendations that we've come up with, the ideas that we've come up with key stakeholders, to make sure that they're reasonable, they're practical, and hear if there are things that we missed, if there are things that we need to revise, or if the things that we need to eliminate because they're undesirable or infeasible or something like that. So it's really just a chance for you and for other stakeholders to let us know what you think about the ideas that we've come up with so far. And we're hoping that we can meet with the committees of this commission to discuss any feedback that you might have. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, we'd really like to hear your feedback. What we'll do then is take all of the feedback that we do get and go back and revise the recommendations, and if there's more analysis that needs to be done, we'll do it at that time as well. And then in mid-May, we expect to release the plan, the first draft of the plan, to the public, and have a period for public comment. And we may have to delay the public release depending on what kind of feedback we get. If we hear that there's more work needs to be done before it's going to be ready, then we might need to take another week or two to do that work. But we hope that won't be necessary, and we'll be able to kind of smoothly make the revisions that need to be made and release the plan in May. As part of the kind of public release, we're going to be going around the island to different communities on the island, presenting the work that we've done, the recommendations that we have, and to the public. And we're working with community groups around the island to come up with good ways to structure these kinds of meetings and make sure that we get as many people as possible to come to the meetings. And so we don't want to just put a notice in the paper, show up, at a community center, and hope that people show up. We'd like to work with existing community groups, let them know about the work that we've done, and invite the members of those groups to listen to what we have to say and provide feedback if they'd like. And we have a fairly detailed plan associated with community engagement that we've talked to you all about before. And then the last bit will be revision of the first draft based on all the feedback that we get from these public meetings and from folks that are providing their comments at any time. And we'll finalize the plan and present it to the county at the end of June. So that's kind of where we are and kind of the next steps going forward.
So we wanted to give you a little more detail on the way we've been thinking about putting the plan together in order to make it, to achieve the primary goal of the plan, which is to give the county a strategic direction and functional plan to pursue its energy goals. And we've talked about a lot of these ideas before in the past, but we haven't really gotten into some of the nitty-gritty of the way what we think a functional structure will be. So I want to go over some of those details. If you want to follow along, I'm going to start on slide 3. And so I'll refer to the slide numbers. If you can see them in the lower right-hand corner of the slides. There's only 3 that we're going to talk about, 3 slides. So the broad structure of the plan, we want to, it's potentially going to be a large document overall. So we really want to break it down into functional chunks. An executive summary that sort of stands alone, that can be taken by top policymakers, community leaders, community members, and just understand the main directions that we're looking at off the bat without having to dig into some of the more detailed analysis and point-by-point recommendation structures. And then the main document will begin with statement of vision and goals and objectives of the plan and of the county, what the sustainable energy future we're trying to achieve here, building on the goal of 100% energy sustainability. And then we'll present a background, the island energy context, some detail on energy sources, energy consumption, current policy environment from the state level, at the county level as well, and the current resources available to the county to do energy policy, energy sustainability policy. And then we've come up with a consolidated 5-year roadmap structure, which I'll touch on a little bit more. But that will pull together the content from the main chapters below. And if you recall, the large content areas are transportation, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and a significant subcomponent called community energy systems for the localized opportunities for renewable energy generation. And then, perhaps most importantly, a section on county policy and procedure, the things that aren't necessarily topic specific, not an energy policy specific, but the right structures and flows and planning processes going forward, and how the county can continue to do successful energy sustainability policy. And that we want to have a separate update and revision plan so that can sort of come into its own and be seen in reference to without necessarily getting tangled up in those specific recommendations that may or may not end up happening in 5 or 10 years. And of course, there'll be a set of appendices where overflow information, different kinds of consolidation of existing materials to make them more readable, perhaps things like focused summaries of specific topic areas. Importantly, we're focused on, reminding everyone that we're focused on the actions that the county can take and has the authority to take, and not trying to duplicate the efforts that's going on at the state level, not try to recreate any processes that are already going on, but rather find the county's role within the larger state energy system and the island energy system, and what its role should be in that system. And so, I'll move on to the next slide. This slide references those 4 main chapters: transportation, energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, and county process and procedure. And we want to structure each of those chapters very similarly, so that they can sort of be held next to each other and compared. And you can almost flip through them together and sort of see how each one flows and how you could consolidate the vision and work. So each one will begin with an introduction, quick background and context, a little bit of data analysis, and then we'll move into a long-term vision. So maybe like a 20-year time horizon, where we want the energy island sustainability system to be, what 100% energy sustainability really looks like, what sort of policies and trends need to be happening for that reality to exist. And inside of that, there'll be some key policy strategies, really focusing on what the things that the county can do in this area. What are the directions they can take for each of these topic areas? And those strategies will be further expanded in the 5-year roadmap, which is hopefully the first of many 5-year roadmaps. That's really the hope, is not to have the process end in 5 years, but it's a useful planning time horizon because policy context is rapidly changing. We want to make sure that we're doing things we can do now, but also looking at the future and then preparing for the next step as that cycle comes to an end. And within that, we'll have a set of priority actions. And these are the very specific types of recommendations on the things that county should be doing, where it should be putting money, programs it should be initiating, ordinances or laws or policies it should be passing through the county council, things like that. And we'll summarize them there so that the 5-year roadmap, again, is sort of a little standalone document that you can look at and get the gist of what's happening. And then we'll have a sort of broad background analysis section, which is more of a resource and for referencing in that 5-year roadmap and long-term vision. And you're familiar with that type of work. We've presented some of the work that happened last summer in that regard already. And then the last section of every chapter is going to be those priority actions again, but in detail. A couple, 1 to 2, 3 pages on each, where the resources should be going. And if you go to the next slide, I have some details on the components we'd like to see in each of those priority actions. So it will start with a short recommendation, just a quick statement of what the policy goal is or the intent of the program. Some background analysis to justify the development of such a policy and some of the policy context and energy data that supports the thinking behind this priority action. And then a detailed recommendation, actions that the county departments, county council, whoever is relevant should be taking. And we'll list those responsibilities explicitly. And we also want to try to do an assessment of what the impact might be, what the sort of intent of the goal is, what we're hoping to see changed by pursuing this priority action. And we also think it's extremely important that those impacts are measured. We want to find a way to measure success for each of those priority actions, or else, it's just a nice program that may look good on paper, but we want to know if we're making progress. In some cases, that will be difficult. It's difficult to get quantitative measurements of sort of broad policies, but we're going to at least try to find the pointers where you should be looking to look for success, qualitative or quantitative. And we definitely want to outline the authority that the county has for each of these priority actions. As I said before, we don't want to be suggesting things that the county can't do, like something that might be the PUC's responsibility. That's not what we want the county to focus on. And the county does have limitations on what it can be doing in the energy system, legal and feasibility-wise. So we want to highlight those to make it clear why this recommendation is structured the way it is, and why maybe something that seems similar would not be included because it's beyond the power of the county. And then we want to provide, of course, cost and available funding analysis to see what resources might be available to support this recommendation, and existing staff, existing county departments, existing programs that can feed into this priority action. And finally, the last piece we want to include for each of the priority actions is a brief feasibility assessment. And this will grow during the stakeholder and community engagement process. We've done a first pass on some of the ideas already, but we specifically want to look at the technical challenges that may be posed to implementing this action or policy. Is there data collection, data analysis challenges? Is there equipment that needs to be purchased and training that needs to take place in order for this to be a viable action? And then, of course, political feasibility. Does it contradict any political goals, any stated county goals? Is it potentially go against any agendas that may? Is there anything that may hinder this type of this action or promote it? And then finally, community support. We want to include what the response from the community was on each of these actions. We've tried to think about it in advance, what some of the challenges might be, so we can more accurately address them in our community engagement process. Hopefully that section will provide a good snapshot of the responses we get through community engagement. And so that's I just gave you a bunch of information. It's a little detailed. We want to make sure you had a chance to see it. And again, it's written down here, and we'll make sure this gets to DOT for digital distribution. And I'll just pass it back to Dave for a quick conclusion.
So the last slide, just to remind you of some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. The next EAC meeting, I think it's on the 26th. Okay. And if at that meeting we'll be ready at that time to describe the major recommendations in detail. If the commission would like us to, we can provide a lengthy presentation at that time, or we can talk about how lengthy you'd like it to be. We're also, subsequent to that meeting, we will be doing the limited release of the major recommendations that I talked about at the beginning to the EAC and to the key stakeholders that we've identified to vet. This is part of the vetting process. And for this period from April 30th through May 14th, is when we hope to get feedback from key stakeholders on the recommendations, and this is when we would like to meet with you. So if at all possible, this is the time period when you have a large kind of document in front of you that would take some time to wade through and consider, but hopefully there'll be you'll have some time to do that at that time, and we can talk about what feedback you might have. And then and like I said before, depending on the kind of feedback that we get in this period, we may have to adjust things slightly for the public comment period subsequent, but these are the kind of key future dates that we think are important right now for you to know about.
Yeah, so in that April 30th, May 14th timeline, just that's the period where we want to meet with the committee. So we can reach out to you if that's how you'd like us to do that via email to each of the committees individually, and try to set up those dates in advance. It's nice to set them up now so we know when they're coming, and you can prepare with the draft that we send out. If that's what the commission would like us to do, that's what we will do. We'll wait for your advice on that. And that's everything.
Great. Thank you, Chris and Dave. Any questions from commissioners?
Is there any provision that either the Kohala Center or a third party come in and measure the success of this, as opposed to doing it internally? Because doing it internally can be not so good.
There's no part of that I'm aware of that will have that there's nothing happening after the plan is finished that I'm aware of at this time. That's something that is kind of above our heads a little bit, but we intend, the way that we're going to describe the potential indicators and ways that you can measure success should be accessible to the layperson, all the way up to the mayor even, so anyone can take a look at a recommendation that we make and see how you might judge whether or not it's being successfully implemented. So it's our intention for the plan to be accessible to any interested island resident.
To your specific point, yeah, I think we haven't finished outlining those, that sort of update and revision process yet, but that's an interesting comment, and it costs money, but it's definitely, that's what they do, for example, at Hawaii Energy. They have an independent evaluation and measurement firm.
Give a percentage of achieved.
Right, and then they do that. Of course, their budget is $30 million a year, but so we'd like to. That's a great recommendation.
That
We'll look more
wasn't in
into
your
it.
proposal to do a follow-up in 3 years and 5 years.
Well, we do, like I said, we want to structure an update and revision process for the plan that we think should be led by the county, but it doesn't mean that there can't be subcontracted analysis and during those plan development timelines. On an annual basis, I'm not sure, but we'll consider it. It's a good suggestion.
Other questions?
I have a couple questions. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I just get psyched up every time I listen to you about what you guys are doing, and I think it's really important work. When you did the original presentation, you remember this, 20-some slides that you guys did a while ago, you said that 95% of the energy is imported when you look at transportation. Are you emphasizing the plan, the effort that needs to happen based on if 95% of the energy is imported, then the effort, 95% of the effort should be done in this area? Or are you saying this is the easiest low-hanging fruit and we need to do this first and then this will have the biggest impact? How are you organizing it?
I'd say it's a hybrid of those. Transportation is sort of what helps drive that 95% import energy, and that's turning out to be a pretty big portion of the plan, specifically because the county has a lot that it can do in that area, where it has less sort of power in the energy efficiency and renewable energy side. So actually, I sort of got lost in the middle of your question.
Well, I just was wondering how you're organizing it in terms of effort and what we need to do. Is it organized based on the energy importance?
I think so.
Like priorities?
Yeah. So the way the analysis and kind of a lot of the background material is going to emphasize the scale of the challenge, which is enormous, and the goals of the island residents, which are aggressive but achievable, we think. So I think there's going to be a very upfront acknowledgement of how this is not something that can be changed overnight. This is so. That said, the focus of this plan is on stuff that the county can work on and the county has the ability to influence. And given kind of that, which kind of narrows the scope of all the things one might want to do if they're looking to entirely transform the economy of the island, which is essentially what is kind of being contemplated here. So that narrows the scope, and then further, we're kind of thinking, practically that things need, the first recommendations or the first things that are done, low-hanging fruit, like you said, given kind of the budget situation that the county has, which is a big challenge to new ideas and new programs, new staff, all that. We're looking for things that are low cost or no cost. Fortunately, there are a lot of those, so we have a lot to say. But yeah, we are kind of focused on, for the county stuff, it's on the low hanging fruit, on the stuff that the county can actually accomplish, we think. And then, but in the larger analysis of the challenge, we definitely acknowledge how big of a challenge it actually is.
Okay, and then I have one other just question about scenario planning, because when you look at 20 years, a lot can happen in global calamities versus on island calamities, whatever. Are you looking at any? How are you how are you planning?
So it's not our intention to predict what the energy system will look like in 2030 or any other time far into the future. We have a long-term vision where we try to articulate or describe what a completely sustainable energy system for the island might look like, but we don't want to be prescriptive or necessarily try to say this is what it should be or this is what it will look like, because we will almost certainly be wrong. So that's why we have a long-term vision, and then we have these 5-year, we can with much more certainty say how things might look over a 5-year time horizon, and that is more useful for implementation anyway. But we are, in this kind of the larger analysis, we do want to analyze what's likely to happen in terms of energy going forward, and there's a lot of uncertainty about that, and that's something that we've talked to folks on the EAC about, forecasting and doing this stuff. We're not trying to duplicate the work of HELCO and the IRP, which is kind of happening now. We're not trying to duplicate the work of Hawaii Energy as the Public Benefits Fund Administrator, or the state with their planning processes. So our work is informed by the work that has been done and is being done, but we're not doing detailed scenarios for modeling out to 2030, all sorts of things based on. There's a great example that the Booz Allen Hamilton, which is a consultancy, did a bunch of work for the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, and they did all sorts of modeling far into the future, but things are changing so fast that a lot of the results of those models are no longer relevant. They just published it in March, and the work they had done was over several years, but still the price of solar has come down more than anybody could have predicted, and so things are changing. Anyway, that's the point, and so we're not going to spend a lot of time trying to predict the future.
Any other questions?
Just one quick thing. Based on all of these changes that rapidly go on, is it possible to release like a copy where, if there are spreadsheets, people can play with their own modeling and see, well, if this goes down and that goes up, and this is the scenario, these are the things, so that they can do things. So would it be possible to get, so to speak, a digital interactive version so we can, with our experience, play with it?
We haven't talked with Will about how the materials that we produce are going to be released, particularly the Excel stuff. But I've seen a lot of other plans that have lists of data tables at the end, and I think certainly that none of this stuff is private information. All of the data that we've collected is publicly available. Some of it's hard to find, but it's all publicly available. And a big goal of ours is to make the information about energy much more accessible to the public, because I think that's one of the challenges to moving forward and achieving the island's goals, is that information is hard to come by sometimes in the energy system. So we definitely want to make it publicly available. Yeah.
Any other questions? I got a couple. I thought I heard you say, Dave, in terms of how this process is going to work, in terms of the major recommendations in the review with the stakeholders, in that you would, based on those conversations, consider eliminating certain recommendations. Is that what I heard? That concerns me a little bit. And I want you to clarify exactly what your intention is with that statement, because there may be stakeholders who have a special interest in mind who don't want a particular recommendation to go forward, and that to me is not justification for removing a particular recommendation. Can you clarify what that process actually looks like?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that, we wouldn't eliminate a recommendation just because someone didn't like it. We're trying to base our recommendations on analysis and background and the current policy context and what the county can do. If through those conversations we come to realize that our analysis is incorrect and that we believe it's incorrect and that the conclusion we reach because of it is incorrect, that would be a basis for considering eliminating a recommendation. But if some political motives, personal agendas, business agendas, those we definitely want to understand those and how they may influence the context and the analysis we've done. But individual opinions to say I just don't like this one. We really would want to see the reasons behind that before we consider taking something out, because there is a chance that we miss something, that there's something we overlooked, that there's a major, a factor that would cause a recommendation to be completely infeasible that we didn't think of. We don't know yet, and that's what we might find out.
So you'd be receiving new inputs and data that could influence the actual validity of the recommendation.
Right.
Is that what you're...
Yeah, but that's how we want to approach it. We don't want to just sort of, it's not going to be a raise of hands. Do I like this? I don't like this, and then we would eliminate it. It's going to be, we want it to be based on analysis, sort of to go back through our process and see where we made errors to lead to an incorrect recommendation.
Well, yes, in the review, we can challenge this and ask me why this was reviewed, and then you can say, well, okay, we'll put it in or take it out.
Yeah.
So we have our chance to question.
And one thing we want to include as an appendix to the plan itself is recommendations that we considered but were not ultimately recommended, and why we decided not to. There's a lot of complexity to the different stakeholders and their interests throughout the island, and there is something to be said for practicality and implementation and being able to actually get something done. I mean, if we feel really strongly about a recommendation but it's politically infeasible, we may still make that recommendation because we feel strongly that it's important. But anyway, everything's kind of done kind of out in the open. We'll present all the recommendations we have. We'll take all the feedback back and revise. And at the end, there'll be a list of things that we thought about, but we decided not to recommend for whatever reason, and let you know that.
Just one other quick question, and you may not want to answer this, and that's okay. Do you in any way acknowledge the goals that are being put forth by the mayor in terms of becoming energy sustainable by 2015 in the production of this? I know you're working directly with the county. You're getting input and feedback from the county as far as how to go about your process and everything. That's being put out there as an acknowledged direction and goal. How do you integrate that into the work that you're doing?
Well, when we started this process, the goal was 100% by 2030. And that guided a lot of our thinking early on, and even through today. The 2015 is a newer idea, and we think it seems that it refers only to electricity, which is only a smaller portion of the energy system. And 100% sustainability in electricity would be a little bit different than transportation fuels as well. With that said, we certainly are going to acknowledge it, but our analysis may not say that it's feasible, or may say that it is. But it's part of the current context, and we can't ignore it.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate the update. Let's take a quick break here for 10 minutes. We're right at a halfway mark anyway today. So if you don't mind coming back at 11:40, we'll move on to the recommendations for the mayor's budget. Thanks again. Thank you. I know you guys put in a lot of time.
I was thinking about doing that.
You were going to be here?
I'm not a commissioner. I'm supposed to be here.
Fancy This is interesting news. My husband. We've been reading this report for years. We've been reading this report for like 4 or 5 years, waiting for it to come out. So it's pretty interesting to see it was on the agenda today.
Well, but this has been ongoing because as they've been doing research and building a report, they give me a report, give me money.
Oh, yeah.
We're kept up to date. I guess that the money is well spent.
We like the report. It's incredibly, in depth and It's pretty well thought out.
Well, it's young people, you know, I mean, this
Young
guy Alex
people?
Frost. Well, it's like this guy he left, Alex Frost. He was just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, they have a certain energy level, and they're not tainted with, you know, they're like well-educated, they're like children's mind, but with university degrees.
Still have hope.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's
bogged down in the system, and how you gonna do that? You realize you gotta do that first, and that's never gonna fly. Blah, blah, blah.
They see what they want to achieve and not all the reasons why you can't do it. They say, that's where you want to be, this is where we are now. And they don't say, oh, but there's a roadblock there.
Oh, we need that, we need that. I just abandoned all my stuff out there in the hallway. I gotta save my screen first. Down the hall.
Good. Because over there is cooling tower. How far away from there?
Way from right back. Give me a minute or two to